So you were wanting to talk about authentic language.
Yeah. So it's like I have this experience where I'm like really wanting to express what's true for me and stay in it. And the actual way that I've chosen to express it or like be aware of myself is keeping me from being in the moment and keeping me from actually deeply connecting with myself and with the person I'm with.
Mm-hmm. And one of the key things that circling does is it like makes us zoom out a little bit and witness what's going on and gives us a bit more objectivity over what's happening, and that's an incredibly important skill to have. The problem comes is when we've got a juicy feeling going on and we're just giving, yeah, I'm feeling anger now. I notice I'm feeling sad. And you actually lose what's there. And it can, that kind of reporting or that authentic language can get in the way of actually just being and expressing what's real for you.
I think that the authentic language, and it's like MVC, the non-violent communication. There's a way of like trying to get it so it's not projection, or so often it's said that it's clean.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
clean is that you're taking full responsibility and not putting it on someone else.
Right.
But if you're really in connection and you're really showing yourself some of the emotions we feel when we're together, if you actually stop like in the middle of anger and like, wait, what am I, own this, what am I, and then as soon as you stop to reflect and try to,
You're no longer in anger, you're in let me
filtering.
figure it out
Yeah.
so I don't hurt this other person,
yeah.
basically.
And the cleanness is important, and the language can point us to that, but there's so much can get lost. And the cleanness, I think, comes from two things. It comes from truth, like what is the actual deepest embodied truth that's happening, and then it comes to a willingness to meet and connect and to look at each other and to just be in what's actually going on directly and quickly together.
Yeah.
And so much of the authentic language, although I'm glad it's there and it helps us to own our experience and points to things, but so much in the community we see it actually getting in the way of two people just being real, showing what's going on, being willing to go into a bit of vulnerability and meet each other in the truth and just let the energies mix.
That's it. And because as you're saying this, I'm realizing what happens is like, I love the language. I think it's important to start learning it, but it's like using it, I'm not actually expressing like, oh, I need to own my projection. But the fact is, I am projecting on you and I want to. And so in a way, I'm denying what's true for me by trying to make it in a particular language form.
It's not just like, oh, let's project over people, but it's like judgment is the same thing.
True?
It's like, what is it? Like, what is the energy of judgment? And rather than just throw it and get away, it's like, no, I'm actually feeling this. I'm feeling like a bit of disgust about this, and I am judging that.
And
it links to this.
It's vulnerable to do that. Like, it's really hard to be like, yeah, I actually am fucking pissed at you right now, or whatever it is, or I'm disgusted by what you just said. Like, it's incredibly vulnerable for me to be messy. And I think that's why I'm like, it's easier to be like, when you said this, like, I noticed I felt a bit of disgust.
And it just goes round in circles for me. It's like you can be in this authentic language communication and it's just like hours going round and not much is really happening. This morning it happened with Sarah. Like, she said, oh, I feel you're being judgmental of me. And my first thing was like, oh no, I'm not being judgmental. And then I felt it and it's like, oh yeah, there was a judgmental thought. And the judgmental thought was like, actually, I don't think you're as committed to going in and revealing yourself as I am. I don't think you're that committed to this. And when I just owned it and shared it, and then I said, it's like, so the cleanness comes in the willingness to stay in with them and be open to them. And it's like, does that land for you? Like, what do you think? And she just starts crying and just says, yeah, I agree, and I want that. And then we're just straight in. And if the judgment's made wrong or the projection's made wrong, we're just getting into our head about stuff.
Yeah.
What I've recently found is when I'm not being direct, and this is maybe a more subtle than the authentic language, but if I have a subtle feeling of like, I didn't like that, or that I don't know if trust, but that frustrated me, what that person said. If I just kind of let that go and then maybe come in with a question.
Yeah.
When I do that, what starts to actually happen inside of me is I change from like an openness where my energy's flowing and I feel like aliveness, and what starts to happen is I go into a meditation in myself. So my energy doesn't feel open, but I've got a witnessing of it.
Yeah.
So I can still get a good presence in a sense with this kind of relating, really trying to get precise with my language, what's going on. But then it actually, in my experience, I start to get that kind of meditative, slow kind of, it is intimate but not as alive.
And you're not really bringing yourself.
But then when I start to bring myself, I do get challenged a lot. Like with my girlfriend just today, when I started just saying, like, I think you're angry and you're pretending you're not. She's like, you're trying to coach me. And she's not said that to me for ages. Because I'm being like more honest now, suddenly there's these challenges coming, and she was kind of right, but like in the end I was right as well. And we just went to a deeper level together, more honest.
And it's that co-creation that just happens consistently.
But it's more edgy.
It's way more edgy, but it's way more efficient. It's like a 3-stage model. The first stage is where we just project over each other and just judge and like leave, and it's horrible.
Yeah.
And then the next stage is like we found a way to use this language to stay in a bit and take more responsibility for our experience and try and communicate.
And it's good that you get an insight into people's minds and how they perceive things.
Yeah, and
there's the beauty of it.
And a self-reflection and not needing to just act on impulse.
Yeah.
And that's the second stage. But then the third stage we just find so much more efficient, where you integrate those two, but there's a willingness to just reveal like what is actually going on and not have to do anything with it other than show it and then just stay in and see how it impacts the other. I'm still open to your experience, even though I'm however angry or whatever it is. And then just becomes a co-creation. And it's not about who's right and who's wrong, and we don't have to go back to 10 minutes ago. It's just like the energies work out. And we do this a lot, where we'll be pretty violent in our communication, but because of the commitment to meet each other and the trust is there, it's like we sort stuff which we could have spent an afternoon trying to get it all out. It's just sorted in 10 minutes and then it's done.
Yeah.
And the integration, I think, that's the second stage of the really clean language, or even using nonviolent communication, is that willingness to be wrong.
Yeah.
And that willingness to stay in.
And for your experience to be in, it's like what happened, you're vulnerable because it's not just about you now. It's like the we space is what's creating the situation. So it's not being attached to what's going on. So even though I was angry and on my high horse about something a second ago, it's like really feeling from each moment to the next, now what's the energy like? Yeah. And we just work it out together, and it is a letting go of control in many ways.
Yeah.
I feel like wanting to honour and get more precise, like saying it's clean language. I don't think that really nails what it is, or I think I can get closer to it. It just feels like projection. It's like blaming other people for what we're experiencing, and that seems to come from like a kind of socialized mind where you're not used to self-reflection.
So that's the first stage, where there's a real blame,
and it's like, there's a tightness, and I've got to fight for what I need, what I want, and and then it's not clean language, it's actually the ability to self-reflect in the moment.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like, and I remember when I first started to do this, how amazing it was to be with someone, and they would say to me, oh, I think I'm feeling a bit uncertain with you right now, and they say something like that, and it was like so like other people have these difficult thoughts like I do. And also like someone would share like self-reflecting what they experienced with me the other day, and it was kind of exciting to see their world.
Because there's suddenly all this other extra information that normally would just be kind of taboo and judged and separate. We've suddenly got a load more to work with.
And the capacity was to, it's like a self-reflection. It's like I'm just looking at my thoughts, looking at my perception of the world and trying to capture it and then share it.
Yeah.
And it's a real joy in this stage for me of like understanding others.
Yeah.
When they would share
Seeing
something.
what's happening without having to really go
Amazing.
into conflict together. And,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when I started to get better at doing that self-reflection, others would self-reflect more with me and I would get more and deeper layers.
Yeah.
But what I start to see, especially this weekend, is that actually when I'm in that kind of way of being, self-reflecting, it's like all the information that comes goes straight into a self-reflection. And then there's a self-reflection happening and then it goes back out.
And it's like there's a deadness to it. It's like two self-reflecting people. It's like,
And
It's
it's
a
like
loop of
a big
self-reflection
mind.
upon self-reflection upon self-reflection.
and it's like there's not the juice of real human meeting.
Well, so the third level for me is embodiment. So it's like a non-filtering through the self-reflection because there's a trust now that the self-reflection's happening.
Yeah.
So like the mind's there, like my self-reflection's here, but I'm able to make that an object and know that that's there. But when I'm receiving someone, it's like my attention now is on my embodiment. And so that someone says something and actually I feel like pain in my belly. So then it's like showing that and allowing it to move my body, direct communication, and looking at them and their embodiment. And then there's a connection. It's like we're
It's
two
not-
bodies.
Yeah, exactly.
And the bodies are full of life. And
exactly.
that's the next kind of deeper information that comes.
And it stems from a trust, which we kind of built up from the level 2 when we get
Right.
to see all these mechanisms, and now it's like we can surrender into a lot of the vulnerabilities that we've avoided from the first level of aggression and these different things, but meeting that trust, and then it's way more rich than the second stage, way more rich.
And so I'm realizing, even like as we're talking about it, the theme of this, or that what we're doing right now in this video, is more of an invitation to like a potential than a critique, because it's like that
Yeah.
self-reflection
It's
is
transcend and include.
yeah.
If you haven't got that self-reflection,
Then it's aggressive and it's
And it's not like there's
polarizing.
like, oh, I've got it now. It's like a constant process of finding all the places that we're still in socialized self. And like even when we're in this other place of full embodiment here, it's like there's another area where I need to actually get the self-reflection before I can re-subjectify into it.
Yeah, I think so.
I like the transcend and include, but I like transcend and enhance. So there's like, if I'm actually going from my body and getting the information that's coming unfiltered, what owning your experience is like I'm taking responsibility for me and not making it your fault.
Yeah.
But if I'm getting really attuned to what's happening in me and showing that, I actually enhance my ability to own it because it's me. And actually there becomes less even worry, or the self-reflection happens seamlessly.
Yeah. Self-doubt
and it seems like there's not many instances where there's a need to clean it up.
no.
Yeah, then this is where I'm getting really excited.
Don't fall off the back of it.
Because it's like where the process of doing this and circling, for me, I feel more human, like more self and less self-identified.
Exactly.
And it's exactly that.
And yeah. And then it's because there's a co-creation of the we and a surrender into what's happening. That's the spiritual dimension,
Yeah.
Like you bringing that in.
which makes the magic. It's the surrender into what's coming through, and the willingness, the faith to trust that,
Well, and that's
and honor others deeply into that everything's included.
well, if you even hear it, the self-reflection. If you look at any of the kind of good spiritual practices, it's about the realization of non-self or
Yeah.
beyond
Yeah,
self
right.
is better. But so if you're in self-reflection, you're actually trying to create your identity. It's coming from a creation of self. This is me, seeing me, sharing me with you.
Yeah.
Whereas if I'm like just in embodiment, it's like
The self
when
dissolves.
you're self dissolves because this is happening here and this energy is coming through me.
Yeah.
It's actually just, this is the moment meeting itself.
Right, and you're open to all of it.
And the self-reflection actually dissolves, and then it's like subtle energy.
Awakened we space.
Yeah.
This is the moment meeting itself. I just love what you just said.